What's happening, people? Welcome back to All Things Story. Today we're going to look at the new film Tron and unpick 3 things that I liked and 3 things that I didn't like with my writer's hat on. So first up, things that I liked. Number 1 was the clarity of the story. With sci-fi, with fantasy, it's very easy to cram loads of things in and want to tell this story and that story and end up telling too many stories. So when I see a fantasy, or when I see sci-fi rather, that's clear, it's not boring, it's not dull, but it's clear with its objectives, it's clear with its characters, its setup, and its goals. I'm all for it. Throughout this story, we knew what the characters wanted, what they were pursuing. We knew the conflict, we knew the obstacles. It was very, very clear. It was about finding the permanence code. I thought they set that up really well. That's something that sometimes stories don't do as sequels. They kind of just throw you in and you have to unpick what's gone on before. But I think this did it really, really well. Just giving us that clarity, putting us into the film and not spending a lot of time doing that kind of grunt work either. Just gave us a really clear understanding what was going on. The second thing I thought it did really well was underpinning the plot with internal ones. Now, it's not to say it did it perfect, and I have a lot of kind of complaints about the way that it's done it, but at least it tried. You have the character of Eve who wanted to find the permanence code because that was what her sister was working for, and there was a sort of feeling inferior to her sister and her pursuing this for those reasons. With Julian on the reverse of that, played by Evan Peters, he wanted to prove himself. So all of these, everything that was going on in the story had that internal function, had that internal feature. Again, not done well, but they tried. Why that's important from a writer's perspective is because you want your events to have that internal impact. You don't want them to feel untethered, as if they're just happening for no reason. So the fact that getting the permanence code was also linked to the two main characters in Julian and Eve. It was linked to their own ones. Next was doing something new. Sequels can fall into that trap of repeating what's happened in the past or trying to be brave and bold and do something fresh. I always respect stories that go that route. They say, do you know what? Something new, we're going to try something. I always respect that. And with Tron, they took it to the real world, which for the first time in the Tron series was something new. The idea of permanence in the new world, that was something that was new to the series. And the introduction of AI and having those kind of similarities with real world situations and what's going on in our world. Yeah, I praise it for that. I think just trying something new. Always go for that with sequels. Always try to, if you are writing a sequel, always try to do something new. Don't rehash it and do the Home Alone 2 just in a new situation and the same as before. I think be bold, be brave, and Tron, for all its faults, does that. First thing was Ares' struggles. So Ares, played by Jared Leto, he is the catalyst for the story because it's him questioning his purpose and who he is and his function that kind of gets the ball rolling. But I felt there wasn't enough struggle with that, being this character, being this program, and then choosing to go against his programming and who he's always been. I don't feel there was enough struggle with that. There wasn't enough contemplation. He was a character that was playing that Spock and Data role, Spock from Star Trek and Data from Star Trek. That sort of character that is figuring themselves out, who they are, who they want to be. And why those characters work is because we see that struggle, we see them make mistakes, we see them come to conclusions that are wrong, and it's a battle. And again, with those characters, we see them over years and years and years. Perhaps doing that in a 2-hour film was a bit too tricky for the character. I think there was a slight struggle, but it just wasn't presented well enough, especially for the character who carries their name in the title. Yes, it wasn't essentially his film, which is another kind of mini gripe that I have, but we needed to see more of him battling with his identity. And I think in the end, the payoff for that, when he kind of accepts who he is, I think the payoff would be better if we saw more of that struggle. The second thing was the stakes. I never felt for Ares or Eve, if they didn't get the permanence code, if they didn't do what they want, I never felt the worse for them. When it comes to a story, and regardless of, not everything's going to be Lord of the Rings in terms of if they don't succeed, it's the end of the world. But it needs to feel like it will be the end of the world for the specific characters, and whatever end of the world looks like for them. In previous Trons, failure meant the character staying in the virtual world. Here, I felt that if they didn't get the permanence code, Tron would be deleted. Again, I don't think they built his character well enough to kind of for us to care enough. And with this, same with Eve, if she doesn't get the permanence code, if she doesn't succeed, shrugging on my shoulders there, because it's a bit like, I don't think the stakes are high. It's like, well, she doesn't get it, she doesn't get it. Well, is it the end of her world? I think they needed to work more on us understanding how vital getting this code was, getting it out there was for her character, and how it was also vital that this code got out for Ares' character. That just wasn't explored enough in stories. As I've said, stakes are so important. They keep you there, they keep you reading. And though the story, as I mentioned, it had good clarity and we understood kind of the goals of the characters and what they wanted, in terms of the stakes, they weren't high enough. I didn't feel that this needed to be done. If you look at the best stories, if you look at your Hunger Games, if you look at your Wizard of Oz, which are stories that I always hark back to, the stakes are clear. If Dorothy doesn't succeed, she'll be stuck in Oz. If Katniss doesn't succeed, she'll die and her family will suffer. They're very clear stakes, and I think even across the board, stories that work, it's if the characters don't succeed, we know their lives are going to be horrible afterwards. Mentally, physically and whatnot, they're going to be horrible. That doesn't quite come across with Tron. And the third point was the ease of victory. I felt they won too easily. And this is probably linked to, again, with kind of Ares' struggles and stakes not being kind of presented well enough. But I felt that their victories, Ares and Eve, their victory was too easy. It didn't have to overcome anything internally. I think the best victories are where they're hard fought. And it doesn't necessarily need to be that kind of Lord of the Rings going to the ends of the world, but symbolically that needs to happen. Characters need to give everything. I always go to it when you're thinking about it, like at the end of the story, it's like, what did it cost? What's been lost? What have you had to sacrifice in order to gain this victory? And I don't feel that that was done very well in Tron Ares. And the last thing there about it, notice it's internal. That last thing I'm saying there is notice that it's internal. Stories are about characters changing. They're about characters overcoming. And with that victory, it felt easy because, again, I didn't know what was at stake, as I've said previously, but I also didn't feel that they had to go through anything internally. Because with Eve, shard of glass that's stuck in her is her loss of her sister. She sort of gets over that through the permanence code and through the story. And then by the end, it's kind of, she's laid that to rest almost before she has to have the final fight. So it's a bit, she didn't have to do much to lay it to bed as well. It's like, she didn't have to go through everything. I think that was another issue with the film, and kind of Eve's the main character, but this is a story about Tron, Ares. It didn't quite work, but perhaps I'll do a video on that another time. There are 3 things that didn't work, 3 things that did. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the film. Overall, I thought it was a meh film. If I had to put it into one word, it was a sort of didn't really need to be told. But interestingly, if you look back at the reaction from this film, it's similar to the reaction that Tron Legacy got and the original Tron got. But time will tell, but I don't think this film will reach cult status that the previous 2 reached years after their releases. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments.